Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program.
Reading with your kids.
Hola, niha, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. Our guest today is Annette Marie Griffin, and she is asking us, what is family? Joining us on the line right now from the beautiful state of North Carolina. She is here to celebrate her debut board book that's being published by our friends at Familius Publishing. The name of the book is What is Family? Our guest is Annette Marie Griffin. Annette, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jed. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really excited, especially anytime we have an author from our friends over at Familius. They've been such great friends with the podcast from the beginnings of the podcast. We've been able to celebrate so many of their wonderful books. And it's interesting that your book is named What is Family? Familius is all about helping families be happy. So I'm really excited for you to tell us what is Family is all about.
Well, this book is just what it says. What you see is what you get. It is a fun and whimsical book for little guys and gals out there that uses animal families to talk about the specialness of family, the uniqueness of family, no matter the shape or size. And it's a rhyming book, and I use collective nouns for the names of animals. For example, an ant lives in a colony. A bat is a group of bats. It lives in a cloud. And so there's some really interesting collective nouns for animals and things out there that I thought it would be fun to kind of incorporate that and weave it all together with what family means.
Wow, you just mentioned a term, and one of the things I love about the show is that I learned so much. And I might have learned the term collective noun at some point in my life, but it's, and I do know that we call, I guess we call a bunch of geese a gaggle and a herd of cows. And so this is this is a neat concept to introduce to kids early on.
I think so. And I think no matter how young a child is, they'll pick up on that. And then it'll be one of those things that stick with them. And when they get old enough to be in a grade that they really start focusing on collective nouns and what they mean, that will be a little notch in their brain that was made there when they were really little. And so I think that's what learning is all about. I think you can take those foundational concepts, if you build them in early, they really kind of stick when you're learning. It's not just about learning a fact. It's about being able to relate that fact to parts of your memory. And I think that's what really helps things stick.
That's really fascinating. There are so many things that we learn at a very young age that appear to be instinctual, and they stick they really stick as opposed to, learning a bunch of facts by rote and then reciting them for the test. And then it seems that they just kind of float away somewhere.
Right, like fractions for me. If I could have in school, associated that with an emotion or with a memory, maybe they would have stuck a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think this is important for us. It just kind of drives home the benefits that our kids experience when we read with them, especially at a young age.
Yes, and I am such a supporter and fan and encourager of. I think reading to your children and the children in your life, it does something more than just teach them about the importance of reading. It creates a bond, a connection there. That's a lifelong bond and connection. I still remember books that my parents read to me when I was young, and it's not so much that I remember the book. I remember the feeling. I remember it's just a nostalgic kind of home building thing.
That's interesting. An interesting point that you made is you don't so much remember the books as much as you remember those feelings. And I think that's one of the things that makes reading with our kids, again, especially at that young age, but throughout our kids' times, that's so special. Yes, it's great that our kids who are read to, they arrive at school hearing, I think it's either 1 million or 8 million more words than kids who aren't read to. And those are great benefits, but it's those feelings of being loved, of that the most important person in my life, my parents, my caregivers, the people I look up to more than anybody else, they love me. And that's such a comforting feeling. It's also such an empowering feeling, too.
It sure is. And in fact, there have been studies that have shown that reading with your children really opens up that learning door that can be closed for a lot of kids. In fact, I just, you would think that as a big fan as I am of reading to your little ones, it would have clicked to me sooner that it's not just for little ones. It's for older kids. I have a 15-year-old adopted daughter who has some learning challenges. And at the beginning of this year, I decided she really struggles with reading, always has because of her learning challenges. And at the beginning of this year, she just was so bummed out about the required reading and just was drudging through it. And I remembered, when I was her age, that's when I really began to love to read. And it was because a third grade teacher of mine, during our break times, right after recess, she would come in and she would have us rest. She would turn out the lights and she would read to us from the classics like The Secret Garden, The Little Princess, and I fell in love with reading at that time. And so, pulling back from that memory, I decided instead of making her read the required reading on her own, I would sit with her and I would read a chapter and she would read a chapter. And it is amazing. It is amazing how much she learned or she has grown educationally from that. Not just that time we spent together, and that has been precious, but educationally she seems to be struggling a whole lot less.
That's really, really wonderful. It's interesting. You talked about struggling less. I'm not sure where you folks are down in North Carolina with the lockdown, but certainly there was a significant amount of time that your daughter was home with you learning virtually. What was that experience like?
Well, we actually decided to homeschool from the beginning of it. Since we recently moved to North Carolina and we hadn't had a chance to really check out schools in the area and figure out what's what, I decided I would take, and because she was struggling, educationally, I thought I would take this year and kind of homeschool, take that big leap of faith and homeschool this year just to kind of get a real-time feel of where she's at and what she's struggling with. And I can tell you, I don't think a lot of parents have that insight. we hear from the teachers, and they give, the teachers in her life have always been really good at communication and keeping me well informed about where she's at. And I've helped her with homework before, but it's nothing like just sitting down and really being involved with that schooling process to figure out how her brain ticks and the places she's struggling and the things that I can do to help her overcome that. It's been a real learning experience.
That's really wonderful that you're able to do that. And, one of the things we've talked about here on the podcast is, we talk about, my wife's a special needs teacher, and we talk about the fact that those kids, they have a team of folks who sit down and look at how this kid learns best and how to support that type of learning. And I've always thought that should be the way we approach every kid, not just kids that end up being identified as having learning challenges, but every single kid learns differently. And boy, if we had the time, and teachers don't have the time, they don't have that time to sit down and evaluate everybody. So what a fortunate thing that your daughter was able to have you and take that time to sit down and really do that deep dive and investigating and what's the best way for her to learn, and how lucky it was for you guys, because you had time to prepare for homeschooling. Most parents had 2 days notice.
I cannot even imagine. I cannot imagine being thrown into it, knowing what a learning curve it was for me, and I did have time to prepare. I cannot imagine parents who are just thrown into that situation, and teachers who are thrown into that situation too, having to do everything online and virtually these days. It blows my mind. It tells me one thing is that we as humans are a resilient bunch. We can pretty much roll with the punches when we have to. So that's a good thing.
It's interesting that you said that, because the last few episodes that we've recorded here, the guests have talked about the fact that this is an excellent opportunity for us to point out to our kids that, yes, this was a really, really challenging time. This is a situation that human beings have never experienced. The world was sent to the corner and put in timeout. We're all in lockdown together, and it was difficult. It was incredibly difficult, but we survived. And, we talk here on the show that there are a lot of parents who want to bubble wrap their kids and make sure that they don't experience any failures and any sorrow in life. They don't get any bumps and bruises and scraped knees because they don't want their kids to feel any pain. We talked about the importance of helping kids understand that they are strong, that they can be resilient. And what a great opportunity for every family just to sit down and celebrate the fact that we got through this together.
That is so true. And what an opportunity, what a teaching moment. We can always find the positive side of things if we look for them. And I think there are a few positive sides to this that we can take full advantage of and really lean into. And that's one of them. Is the time together we can spend as a family learning those important and hard things in life firsthand.
One of the things that I wanted to just mention, what is family, the title of your book? Such an important question to talk about with our kids. And family is, that biological family, and the family we're born into, the gaggle that we fly with, the herd that we kind of hang out with. But there's also the family that we choose to, the people in our lives that we choose to make family, like the choice you made to include your daughter and make her part of your family. How can we best express that to our kids and just let the kids know that family is more than just biology?
Well, I think that was my whole motivation in writing the book, because I think that there is something to that traditional family unit that is special, a mother and a father and the children. But there's so many kids out there who don't have that traditional family unit. And I wanted them to know that no matter what, if they're in foster care, if they're adopted, if they're a part of a family with a single parent, if they're, the kids need to know that what makes a family is that caring, that sharing, that loving that goes on behind the scenes, not that tag that's put on the top of it. And, I was a CASA volunteer for a while, and we also did foster care for a while. And so I saw all kinds of kids that were really searching for homes, searching for a family. And I just want them to know that that doesn't have to be found in that traditional setting that we're told. I was raised by a single mom with 5 children, and she did an excellent job. But I do have to say that as far as literature is concerned out there, a lot of times I felt left out. And I longed for that traditional family, and I think most kids do. But it can be found. That searching for home, that searching for love and acceptance can be found within the framework of where you're at now. You just have to look for it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned literature. There are, and we've probably interviewed a half dozen to a dozen authors of books that, talk about pets, dogs, cats finding their forever home. I don't think we spend enough time talking about the fact that, yeah, it's great that you rescue a dog or rescue a cat, but there's so many kids out there that are waiting to be rescued, waiting to find that forever home for them. We've had Dr. John DeGarmo on the show talking about the fact that there are, I think the number is 600,000 kids in the foster care system on any given day. That's an incredible number of kids that are waiting for their forever home.
That is, and it's so sad. And when you can put, there are sites out there that have pictures and bios of all of those kids for adoption. And if you ever want to torture yourself a little bit, you can go and just look at it or inspire yourself and motivate yourself to do something. And for us, that's where that came in. But when you think of how much love you have in your own family to give, and you think about how many people are out there who could be a part of that, it really makes you stop and think a lot more deeply about what a family is. And I think that we all have room in our hearts and in our homes, and especially in this country, we think about a lot of things in financial terms. I think we all have room, no matter what financial situation we're in. And I bring that up because a lot of people that I've talked to have told me, oh yeah, I would love to adopt, and then there's all these excuses. They're the same excuses that we had. Mm-hmm. And so I'm definitely not throwing any stones. But I think if you can work past those excuses to get to the heart of the matter, I think that everybody could embrace one of those children out there, and we'd be with a lot fewer kids waiting for a home.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the podcast is while I'm interviewing people, random thoughts just kind of pop into my mind. And as you were speaking about financial resources and whatnot, I remember that term that my mom used to use all the time. Money doesn't grow on trees, and that's certainly true, but love is something that just grows in our hearts. And, it's not this exhaustible resource like money. You can get to the end of your money, but it doesn't, I don't think I've ever gotten close to being at the end of my love. In fact, it feels like the more love I put out there, the more love I have.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I love the way you phrased that because it's so true. I think that, I think mothers can relate to that in that after they've had one child and they fall in love with that child and then they become pregnant with a second child, they often think, but what if I don't love this child as much? How can I possibly love this child as much as my first? And it always comes. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think that it's the same with adoptable kids. I think that you may not be able to reason in your mind how you could ever love a child who you've adopted as much as your biological child. But when the time comes, I think it just comes natural. I think the grace is there when we need it. And it's just a matter of taking that first step.
One of the things that I love about this, and we've talked about it on the show, we talked about the fact it's so important for kids to see themselves on the pages of books. And, you were saying earlier on that in literature, one of the things you were missing is you didn't see you and your family portrayed that much in the pages of books. I think it's also really important for kids from a traditional family to see that there are different families out there and to appreciate that so that they can have more empathy and understanding when they meet a kid who, you're in school and your best friend doesn't have any siblings one year, and then you come back and all of a sudden there's a sibling in that family through adoption. And this would just be a great way to help our kids understand, yes, love, family is love, and who we choose to love and bring into it.
Oh, I think that's such a great point. I think that the more we can introduce the truth through pages in our books and through media and through, even little television shows that kids are prone to watch, I think that if we can surround truth, that those innate, selfish behaviors that are within us can be transformed into something where we're not looking inward and thinking that the world revolves around us and start looking outward to the world at large. I think that it all begins with a page. It all begins with a story. It all begins with connecting that child to the truth in a way that they can understand.
Boy, isn't that true? Helping our kids understand that the world doesn't revolve around them. That's a really important lesson to teach our kids, and it can be really tough sometimes to teach that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, now that you've caught the writing bug, how does it feel? Your book is coming from familias. Are you hooked on that feeling? Is writing something that there's going to be a lot more coming from Annette Marie Griffin?
Well, writers have a saying, and you don't choose to be a writer. You just, the writing comes through you. There's no way you can stop writing. So the answer is yes. I have a lot more stories out there, just, that some are already on the page. Some are just waiting to be told and bubbling over onto the page. And I'm sure there will be more after that. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited to share my thoughts with the world in hopes that they will glean a vision a collective vision that I think is inside all of us, whether we write or not.
Well, I'm excited. I'm encouraging folks to check out What is Family. Where can folks find out more about this great book and also find out more about you?
Well, they can find out more about the book and the publisher through familias.com. They can find out more about me from my website, AnnetteMarieGriffin.com. And they can also check me out on social media. A lot of my Facebook, is under Annette Marie Griffin. I'm very easy to find. And Twitter, Griff Kids Books. So there's lots of places. If you want to find out about me, you can. It's just a matter of going to the internet.
Well, we want to encourage everybody to take that effort and put it out there and get to know Annette Marie Griffin and also get to know What is Family. Annette, thanks so much for being part of our show.
Thank you, Jed. I have so enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Rinda Beach. Rinda is an old friend. She is coming in to talk to us about lake fun for you and me. That is the next edition of the show. If you are the author of a great children's book, be sure to check out our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. You can find out more information about it at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Author Services button at the top of the page and let you know all about this fantastic program. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful, starting with our guest, Annette Marie Griffin. Be sure to check out What is Family. Also want to thank my amazing team, starting with my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.